This is me. In 1988, as I sailed out of the Svenson's boatyard in Alameda, California, to leave and go down the west coast of the US and of Mexico to Acapulco, where I made a right-hand turn out to cross the oceans of the world and sail alone around the world, and becoming actually the first American woman to do that. And I was paying my way around the world. I left with very little money by becoming a painter. And wherever I went, I painted scenes along the way. Not too long into my journey. I mean, after the first probably year or 2 years, I can't remember exactly, I began to have a lot of pain in my hands, my right hand in particular, all in this area right here, on the back of my wrist, on the side of my wrist, and in my thumb, and the same location on the other side, but nowhere nearly as bad as on the right hand. And a lot of limitations developed. For example, I could not do that. I could not pick up a single sheet of paper. It was impossible. I couldn't take a needle to sew my sails if they needed sewing. I had to put the needle in a pair of pliers and then push them through so that I could make repairs to my sails. Those were the two big things that stood out. It was also hard to cut food, to chop food for cooking, and lots of other things that required fine movements in my hand, including holding on to the little tiny paintbrushes that I used to do the highly detailed watercolors that were the thing that I did that paid my way. I didn't connect the pain with that other than it hurt when I did it, but it hurt to do a lot of things. I thought perhaps it was all the heavy work on the boat, managing the sails and the lines, and carrying heavy jugs, working on the engine. You know, it was a little brutal on my hands because if it was an emergency, I did what I had to do. It got so bad that on the way to Darwin, Australia in 1992, I'd left New Caledonia en route. And my arms were so bad at night that I couldn't sleep. This is what I looked like. I rolled up magazines and taped them to my arms every night. And that's the way I had to go so that I could get some rest. By the time I got to Singapore, it was no better at all. And while I was there, nothing really changed. It still was bad. So it wasn't the sailing. I was there 13 months and not sailing, still working on the engine and such now and then, and still painting. I became a very regular patient or client at the Buddhist free clinic in Singapore for acupuncture treatments and also for herbal pills. And that wasn't changing anything. But interestingly, I discovered that when I was riding an escalator in the big shopping centers, all had escalators and they were, quite tall. So I'd be going up in the escalator and my hand would come down onto the moving rail because it was warm. And it liked that warmth. Or if I had a coffee or a tea, my hand would curl around to snuggle up to the warmth of the cup. Very interesting, beginning to learn a little bit about the body going for what it needed and wanted. I carried on with my journey and I got to the Mediterranean. Things hadn't really changed very much at all. 1994. And as I went, I was always painting. But when I left Marmaris to go through the Mediterranean and down to the Canaries and across to Barbados and then up through the Windward Chain in the Caribbean, I wasn't painting. And that was 9 months of travel. And at that time, I began to notice that my hands weren't hurting anymore, that I hadn't put it together. And I guess I really couldn't have stopped painting anyway. So I began painting again once I got kind of settled in St. Martin, and then on down through the islands then on through to through the canal, up the West Coast, and to Puerto Vallarta, where I settled, and I still am. And something interesting happened there. It was in 2006, and I met Heather Wallace. Heather had created a very, very interesting pain management system, the Wallace method. And what she said to me was that she sculpted bodies. And I, of course, I saw liposuction and I saw scalpels, and I went, oh, well. And she's, well, if you're curious, come and see me. So I did. I have a high level of curiosity. And she said, I want to work on you for 2 months, 3 times a week. So I ended up going and seeing her. Now, nothing was wrong with me as far as I knew. I thought I was in really good shape. And I wasn't painting those little paintings anymore, or those detailed paintings anymore. So my hands weren't hurting. But it was amazing in that 2 months, because all these issues that I'd kind of worked around went totally away. So that included my neck, injuries from bus accidents in this shoulder, and most importantly, my right knee, which had been injured when I was 10 years old, and all the problems from that knee went away. I was really thrilled with this. And I said, Heather, the whole world needs what you do. This is amazing. Less surgeries, less medicine. I think it's fantastic. And I need to know how to do it. I really want to be part of taking this out to the world. She agreed to do a workshop the next year in 2007. Here we are making plans together for that workshop. I took it. I got certified and trained by her. I began taking care of people, helping them. And I kept thinking, this is really funny. I think I could just teach them how to move, and they would have this for the rest of their life. It would be their own thing. They could use it anytime they needed it. The big challenge in that is really how to teach an improvisational system, because this system depended on being improvisational, not being directed by the mind, not being directed by all the old messages you had ever heard in your life about how to stretch, how to exercise, and so on, because this came from a different place. It came from inside the body. I worked on developing a method where I would teach the idea behind the movements, the manner in which to move, and then the body would begin to direct those moves. And the result, of course, was organic stretching. Once I got into really working with this, I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand why it worked, and what was so different about this from anything else that was out there. And I was reading everything I could find. So a partial list of some of the books: Dean Juhan's Job's Body, Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, James Oshman's Energy Medicine, and Bruce Lipton and the Biology of Belief. Well, a lot of this has to do with inner communication, body-driven communication. And I became quite passionate about this whole concept. And in my classes, we were discovering this energy flow at the same time that I was doing all that reading. This is as we followed in the movements that the bodies were leading us to do. And I would discover it and say, does anybody else feel that too? And when they said yes, and it would be the same sensation in the same part of the body, I was really intrigued with what was going on. As I worked on my own, I was discovering a very interesting link between my intention when I began following the body and paying attention to it and in contact with it, and the quality of the compassion that was generated when I did that. If my intention was there and coming from the heart, it changed the whole experience on the inside. And I'm going to, just for fun, let you try a little of that. Okay, so we're going to start and just put the right hand on top of the left hand and slowly, slowly move up. Stop a minute. Breathe, be quiet. Feel the thumb on the inside of the arm and the fingers around the outside. Feel that sensation where they're touching the arm. It's in the arm and it's also in the fingers that are doing the touching. And that arm just rolled over, so now my hand is on the inside. I think is even more sensitive there almost. And the heel of the hand is sliding back over and it's coming up onto the bicep. And the fingers are lightly closing around the back of the upper arm. And the connection at this moment is amazing. That hand is sending the most delicious energy down into the body. It's going from the arm right down through the trunk. And as I exhale, it's going right on down through my feet. And the left hand for me has just come, the backs of my fingers have come against my cheek on the left side. And the right hand is sliding up over my shoulder. And now the two hands are coming together. And the back of the left hand's coming along my cheek, left cheek. And the sensation is amazing. It's the way that you would touch someone you were cared very deeply about. It has that quality. If this was your best friend and you wanted to let that friend know that you were there for them, that you were caring for them, it's that kind of touch. And it's not a touch we give ourselves. And oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. I hope that you were able to share that experience with me, because it is just divine. The energy that we set off, all our cells are picking up on all that energy. They're actually all semiconductors. You'll find that in the books that I was reading. And semiconductors are communicating. That's how our computers work. And very important to understand that. Yeah, the medium that they conduct through is the connective tissue system. It's not going down your nerves, which are more linear, and this is a different pathway, so that it's passing through the medium of that connective tissue, which is very fluid, hopefully. When we're healthy, it's very fluid. In order to reach that point, we have to quiet the mind, turn off all the mental instructions about how we're supposed to do things, all the voices that are saying, that's not right, don't do it that way. You know what Mrs. So-and-so said in gym class, right? Do it on one side, you have to do it on the other side, and that kind of thing. It isn't like that. You know, our two sides of our bodies had different lives, believe me. The more I could, and my students could, allow our bodies to move as those bodies needed and wanted to, the better the quality of all of this. And for me, as I observed what my body did with that freedom to talk, talking by moving, I discovered something quite interesting, because at this same time, I was beginning to put together an online program to offer. So I was doing a lot of video editing a lot of graphics work and website work, and was on the computer all day, every day, for hours and hours and hours. And here came that same pain back in my hand. Okay, now it was from a mouse, not from a paintbrush. And so as I watched at this more heightened state that I'd reached in terms of my communications, understanding my communications, I watched the movements that my hand would do when it was given freedom to move. And those became the Henry hand moves. That is exactly how they developed. And they are so different and so effective for working on those problems of repeat motion injuries that are in the hand and the wrist. And we have other moves that go up into the shoulders that also help on that. But to discover that letting go and being compassionate with myself allowed that to happen. It was amazing. Thank you.